All right, everybody. Welcome to a very special Versus episode. We are joined here with a mediator in Will. He wants to hear our bitters and banters today because we've got a very special one. We've got Tenet, watched Tenet, and Gabe watched The Sacrament, which is what I issued him. So, Gabe, without further ado.
You're starting with me. You really want to know what I thought about
I can't
this movie,
wait.
man.
I can't
Just
wait.
cutting right to it.
So this movie, The Sacrament, and it was directed by Ty West. I think that's why you recommended The Sacrament. So
Just to open you up a little more to Ty.
it was a good movie.
Okay.
I didn't think it was a fantastic movie.
Mhm.
But the reason being, I think and it's no fault of the film, no fault of the film or Ty West. I think it's because it's when you told me this was based off of
Jonestown.
I was excited because I love that, like I love studying kind of like the psychology and sociology of just the implications of Jonestown. But
Yeah.
with this movie, I think Ty West did a great job adapting it in terms of it being kind of like this found footage Vice news thing and
Yeah.
putting that twist on it. Because without that, all you really have is just kind of this translation of what happened at Jonestown. Even though I forget what they call it. They call it what do they call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
not called
forget.
Jonestown in the movie. It's called something Eden. I forget what
Yeah.
it was
Eden's
called, but
Paradise of Eden or something
yeah,
like that.
something of the sort. I think the movie. I think I'm going to say the biggest fault of the movie, and then what I enjoyed. I think the biggest fault of this movie is that you know how it's going to play out, right? It's
Yeah.
like like he does a great job of building this tension with like especially during the interview scene where they're talking about like how he started the whole place and why he did it, and you just get like this uncomfortable tension of like something's coming up, right? And he does a great job of building that tension. I think Ty West does an incredible job with this film, but through no fault of his own, it's because I know what's going to happen
Yeah.
that it doesn't reach those like levels of like it did with like Evil Lurks. You know what I mean? Like
Because you were surprised.
yeah, I was surprised. That movie kind of took me off guard so many times. And with this one, I was kind of like, I'm waiting for, the Kool-Aid to come out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's like what's gonna happen. But I think that Ty did enough with the found footage piece of it that made it elevated it, right? If anyone else had done it as just kind of like a regular found footage thing, this movie would have been trash in my opinion.
Yeah.
But because he kind of incorporated this like news element to it,
Yeah.
and
with a realistic news outlet too at that.
yeah, with Vice
feels
News, and then
real.
also you have one of the main characters, having kind of this emotional attachment because his sister's there, right? So
Because of
like
the
there,
sister.
it's not just like let's explore this crazy cult. It's like, hey, my sister's here. We need to go get her, and they're just kind of tagging along, and they introduce it that way, right? It's like, hey, he told us he's going to go see his sister, and we thought it'd be interesting to kind of monitor that and see what happens. So I think Ty did a great job doing that. I think that honestly that really showcases his skills as a director, and I think he wrote this too. I think he actually wrote the screenplay. Yeah, so he's a talented writer. He's a talented director. I just think because of the source material itself, it led it to being kind of anticlimactic to me because I knew what was going to happen. Because it was so much like Jonestown. I do think so. I forget the guy's name who played Jim, or it's not Jim Jones in the movie, but he's an incredible actor. I've seen him in a few movies. He was in Killers of the Flower Moon. I think he was in No Country for Old Men. He's been in a few movies. He's a great actor. I think everyone did a great job of the performance. The cast did an outstanding job. The cinematography was great with the found footage. I really liked that it wasn't kind of corny trope found footage stuff. Like the way he did the camera work, I think was really creative. That made it seem more natural, not just kind of like other found footage films where it's like forced, where it's like I'm running with the camera, where it's like this is so damn forced. Like no one's gonna run with a camera. But in the way he did it with this film, it's like he placed the camera like in the bedroom, right, and like let the events play out like that. It was just more realistic the way he implemented the found footage cinematography piece. So I think it's like no fault of the film or Ty or the writing or anything like that. I think it's just because of the source material or the material he was inspired by. It just like you know what's going to happen, and the way it plays out, it's kind of what I was expecting. I will say that the part that kind of that there was one jaw dropping part where the sister, spoilers guys, she lights herself on fire, and I thought that
Yep.
was that
The
was
self-immolation.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was awesome. I thought that was great because I thought for some reason that she was gonna maybe turn, like, kind of like she just killed her brother, and she's like, "Oh my god, what have I done?" I thought maybe she was gonna kind of realize that this is kind of crazy, and what the fuck did I just do? But, she went a completely different direction. It's like, "I'm just gonna kill
Yeah.
myself. This is I'm done." So I thought that was fantastic. And the stuff with the little girl, the subplot with the little girl kinda
Yeah.
giving hints that something's wrong, like I said, just he's incredible at building tension throughout a
Yeah.
movie. If this was like a if this was a plot where I didn't know what was gonna happen, and
Yeah.
if I never heard of Jonestown, I think I would have probably rated it a bit higher.
Okay.
But because I knew what was gonna happen, it kind of played out as I anticipated, which is
Yeah.
it sucks. It's no fault of the film, but, um so yeah, I'd probably give it like a let me see, we're working out of 10 here, right? So, like,
Mhm.
I'd maybe give it like a 7.5.
That's fair.
Yeah,
But
like,
on
it's not a
a
horrible movie. I enjoyed it.
yeah.
It's a good time, and I think, if you're interested in Jonestown and you're
Yeah.
interested in how that played out and seeing some of the psychology play out, I think that Ty captures that beautifully, especially with exploring different parts of the town from, like, the nursing to, people who are telling their stories of how they got there, and you
Yeah.
really get a sense of, like, how a cult, kinda comes together and is built. But um, I think that was just the one aspect, man, that it's just like you know how it's gonna play out if you studied Jonestown, and if you're invested in that and you've studied it a bit. But, I didn't hate it.
Yeah,
I
for
didn't
sure.
think it was like the levels of, like, maybe and it sucks. Maybe I don't know if that played a role into it too, because I had just seen Evil Lurks,
Yeah.
and then I saw
And you liked it a
this, and I
lot.
was like,
Yeah.
"Man, that movie was like, to me, like, it was next level," and then this one was,
Yeah.
like, I kind of knew where it was going. So
So
that's
do you
my
feel
take
like,
on
on this movie, do you think
yeah.
somebody who didn't, because to your point, somebody who didn't know about Jonestown, would you recommend them watch it and you think they would come
Yes,
away a lot more blown away?
100%. If you've never heard of Jonestown or what transpired there, and you see this movie, I think that you're gonna be blown away and you're really gonna enjoy it. I honestly think I'd probably bump up my rating probably another point, probably give it like an 8.5 if I had no idea where the movie was going.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part about almost like doing these films that are inspired by true events, right? Like
Yeah.
if you do like a war movie or something like this, Jonestown, like it's like you kind of know where it's going, and I think
Yeah.
that's, that's tough on a director, it's tough on a writer because you have to kind of, spin it in your own way that makes it unique.
Yeah.
I think Ty did enough here that, he did spin in a way
With the
that made it
sister and
unique.
everything?
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
Vice News and the found cinematography,
That was
but
great. Yeah.
yeah, but it just played out so much like Jonestown that I was kind of like, okay, like I kind of saw that coming. But
Yeah.
I'd watch it again. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't mind actually watching it again to kind of, maybe like a year later to kind of see how I feel about it. But
Yeah.
off the top, I'd say maybe like a 7.5. It's a really good movie though.
Yeah. It's really good. Yeah, because I really wanted to open you up to a lot more Ty West because I'm always talking about
Hmm.
House of the Devil. And when I watched Sacrament, and I think maybe that just didn't, I think maybe the sister part and like, because at first I was like, wait, this is an actual documentary from that time. I even Googled when Vice News was founded. Because
Oh my god.
it was so, because like I've never seen something like that. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Where they use an actual outlet and they're like, I was Googling their names to see, okay, who's this reporter and everything. I was just, they went that mile, you know what I mean, to
Yeah.
really get you in there. Cause a lot of people know Vice News. It's a pretty,
Hmm.
it's an outlet out there with a reputation for sure.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I think I gave this a 9 or 4.5, 4 stars on Letterbox
Four
because like
stars.
even yeah, I want to say I did that because, it was the monologue, hearing it, of course, a lot of people, or I wouldn't say everyone or even a lot of people, but there's people out there that have heard it. If you don't know about Jonestown, even going on the Wikipedia page, there's
Hmm.
like a 10-minute monologue in the movie where you can hear that almost verbatim from an actual
Hmm.
recording from
Yeah. The events that
the
happened.
events that happened. And I just think the lead actor here just absolutely crushed it in bringing that
Hmm.
emotion, that creepiness, and especially or major spoilers, but the scene whenever he's waiting for them in the room with the revolver, that
Yeah.
was just next level for me. And it was just so good the way that he's talking to him, and you can just tell that like it finally just. Of course, he already snapped at that point, but it was just a whole
Mhm.
other level of snap with the crazy stuff he was saying. I loved it. And especially like it's claustrophobic without being claustrophobic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean by that? Like it's
There's
like it's
tension
like
there
when
trapped there.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like one of those open world video games, but you can't go past these boundaries. It's like a little sandbox.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how this movie feels. It feels very open, but very like you feel like kind of encapsulated in this small
Mhm.
little foresty area as well with these characters and stuff. And I think adding the sister in there, like I think that would have been that's a great point that you made to alleviate it a little bit more or elevate it. Like, had the sister not been in there or the little girl and, like, the creative freedom, I think it would have been
Yeah.
a generic outside of the Vice News aspect, I just think
Yeah.
that's a whole different the camera angles, as you were saying. I think that really elevated it for me by I was invested in the sister while I knew everything else that was going on. Okay, well, how does the sister play in? How does the little girl play in on here? How are they gonna take it and everything? And
Mhm.
it was pretty crazy, especially I believe the helicopter scene towards the end,
Oh, yeah.
whenever they're trying to get out of there and stuff like that. Crazy good. Just crazy
Yeah,
good.
he's great at building tension, and if anyone
Yeah.
else had done this, I think that it would have fell into, the lower tier, found footage kind of movies,
Yeah.
but I think Ty knows how to kind of create tension and build a story throughout, even with an event like Jonestown. So, what do you think of this, Will? I know you gotta go soon, but, like, what did you think of Sacrament? Is it a movie that you enjoy?
Yeah, I like it. I got a few minutes here, but I'll kind of give you guys my thoughts and then I'll bow out gracefully.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm very interested. I've always been interested in the psychology of cults,
Mhm.
and kind of like those, fanaticism and using that as a means of power and control over vulnerable people or vulnerable individuals. And I think Ty really taps into that with this film. I think it's even though you know how it ends, knowing about Jonestown, like you said, Gabe, if you don't
Mhm.
know about those events and you're going into this blind, I think the movie's much more effective. But I think it still really works well as kind of a psychological portrait of what a situation or what an environment like that is like. And I think he really does a fantastic job of conveying that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate it. It reminds me of another movie that I'll shout out here quick if you guys haven't seen it. That's actually directed and written by Kevin Smith called Red State.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which is
I think
similar
I've
in
heard of
vein
it.
to this, same type of situation. It explores themes of, religious fanaticism and what that drives people to do. And there's that other aspect of control there. And the whole,
Mm.
like the whole, cult leader aspect of it. And I think the guy's name is Gene Jones. You mentioned him, Gabe. He is a fantastic actor. He plays the father in this
Mm.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just incredibly convincing performance. But that's pretty much my thoughts on it, and I'll bow out here so you guys can keep going here. But I'm glad that you liked it. Because
Yeah.
when you and Chase started this venture, it was always like, oh, like what can I throw at Gabe to like see what his reactions are going to be,
Yeah.
and yeah, the when she sets herself on fire, that's probably one of the most shocking scenes in the movie. But I'm glad
Mhm.
you enjoyed the movie because when I first was told of this idea, I was like, well, Gabe's probably going to want to self-immolate, after watching some of the pics that Chase is that Chase is throwing
Some of
at
the
him here.
stuff I throw in the
Yeah.
chat.
So no, I appreciate the fact that you like it. Like I said, I do agree with you. I think it works much better if you're going in completely blind, if you're unaware of the events of Jonestown. So,
Yeah.
but ultimately, it's still a pretty solid movie. And you
Yeah,
guys
it's a cool
both know
flick.
I'm a big fan of Ty West. I think this is one of his more, I guess you could say, low key efforts. And I don't mean
Mhm.
to say that in a bad way. I just think when I look back at his filmography, it's not a movie that I go back to often when I'm thinking about, what stands out of the films he's made, especially now with X and Pearl and
Mhm.
Maxine on the horizon here. So he's obviously moved on to bigger projects. But this is a neat little movie. I like it.
Mhm.
If it's
Yeah.
even if it's something you don't want to revisit, I think it's worth checking out at least once just to kind of get an idea. Again, I think he captures the psychological aspect of a cult really well. And I kind of like the found footage style that he incorporates too. I think that kind of elevates it. Like Chase said, I think again, you're kind of like a voyeur, like a
Mhm.
fly on the wall, right? And I kind of like that. I like how he approached it from that point of view. So yeah, solid movie.
Yep. Cool.
And with that, I am definitely going to check
And
the
Will
rest
is
of this
out.
video out because I'm interested to hear what Chase has to say about Tenet.
That's
And
in
I
it.
wish I had
Yeah.
more time, but
Yeah,
I'm going to
bomb
let
drop
you
right
guys.
now.
I know I'm going to let you guys take it from here though.
We'll
But
see you
I'll
soon,
I'll
bud.
follow up. All
Thanks
right,
for
buddy.
joining us, man.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So
So now we're
Tenet. Let me fix that
yeah,
view.
there we
Boom.
go. Bam, Tenet. So you just saw it. Did you see it yesterday or you just finished
Yeah.
it? Yeah. Your
Yeah.
reaction right now is
It okay, so I'm surprised by the amount that I did understand. I will say that. I will preface that.
okay.
I will, because like, I heard the biggest complaint with this that I heard was like the way that time works. You know, the jumps, this
Mhm.
and that. But I think what people failed to just embrace is that it's all running simultaneously forwards and backwards and present at the same time. It
Yes.
all overlaps. There is no like think Oppenheimer when you're going like forward and back, you know, color black and white. There's no
It's
clear
just one
thing,
timeline.
one timeline.
Yeah, that goes
And
like
then
this pretty much like the
yeah,
same yes.
it's like those if you've been to the airport and you have those like
Yeah,
little walking paths. Like,
exactly.
you know,
Yes.
it's just like that, but with it running simultaneously with the same people on each side. So I got that because like the movie really did a good job of keeping my attention. You know, with
Mhm.
the bullet shots and the reverse imagery and everything, it is a visual masterpiece. It really is. The 4K looks astounding.
Oh yeah.
Everything about it.
It's freaking
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and even like the subtle hints and subtle cues and everything, like I don't know how often people pick up on this, but I mean that's Neil at the end. You know what I mean? With
Oh, with the kid?
the kid. That's him.
There's a we'll talk about that at the end, man, because there's fan theories about that, but some of it,
Yeah.
I see it, but I also
Yeah.
don't see it. Like, there's arguments for both sides, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
Yeah, because it makes sense because like with what he says at the end where it's all going about like you're the one that recruited me into this venture. He saved him multiple times
Mhm.
because of the red keychain on the
Yeah.
backpack. And then he's also the one that took the bullet. The only thing that I don't understand is how are these people coming back to life after, especially after he takes a bullet, unless that's him in the far future. You know what I mean? That's where I start getting confused. You know what I mean? Because it
Yeah.
doesn't explain that. Because if that's his body and everything, you know what I'm saying?
That is
And
one of the
he,
most confusing scenes is him coming back, but
yeah,
also the door locking. A lot of people like, debate that scene, there's
yeah,
threads of this, dude, like,
yeah,
you can go down a whole rabbit hole, and
yeah,
it's I think the biggest thing that people need to and you laid it out perfectly, it's like, it's one timeline, it's going, reverse and backwards at the same time, but
yeah,
the film itself is all a paradox, so when you try to understand it,
yeah,
like, I think a lot of people have trouble understanding it because like one thing can't happen without the other thing happening. Like
yeah,
so like
yeah,
it's just this constant loop. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And when you try to delve into, well, how can this go? But if this didn't and it's like, no, you're not going to get it
But
because at the end of the day, it's a loop.
yeah, because they're changing because they're currently in the present, the past, and the future. But they also even said the future affects the past.
Hmm. The future,
So
yeah. Well, that's what they're so they have that conversation in the shipping container about the
yeah,
grandfather paradox, right? Where it's like, can you
yeah,
go back and kill your grandfather and be born to commit the act? That's
yeah,
where Tenet comes in because they don't know, right? The future is obviously trying to destroy the past, but they
yeah,
don't know, like, their job is kind of like, well, just in case it's possible, we need to stop it.
yeah,
Because the protagonist says, like, well, since we're here, doesn't that mean it never happened? Like, we
yeah,
won. But Neil is kind of like, well, we don't know that for sure. Like, we can't leave that up to chance.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's some absolutely gorgeous cinematography. And honestly, like there's a couple of scenes whenever they're with the younger, what's her name, Cat?
Yeah, Cat, the female.
Yeah, whenever
Yeah.
the antagonist, I forget his name, the dude,
Seder
yeah, Satyr. Whenever he's in there and he shoots her in the
of
stomach and
it.
stuff like that, or
The
like right there.
observation room with the red
Yeah,
and blue. Yeah.
the red and blue, gorgeous.
Mhm.
And especially the end where it's all 3 of them and they, all, like, separate the pieces of the machine and everything like
Mhm.
that. There was just something that looked absolutely stunning on disc
Yeah.
about that. It just looked really good. There was, like, these little sparkles, you could see dust particles and everything
Yeah.
like that over the screen, and it just looked awesome. Like, the biggest thing that I could see about this movie that I don't know, maybe you can correct me, but I was thinking of this and I was gonna pose it to you. 'Cause I had a lot of fun in the movie. Let me get with that versus just trying to dissect the movie, 'cause that's a whole podcast episode. Like, so, like, the thing is I think this movie tackles something about the way that movies are consumed that I don't know if this is a talk track, which is why I wanna pose it. Infinite rewatchability. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, I don't think there's a lot of movies that are made where you can't understand it to the fullest extent in one go. Like, think of the last 20 minutes of 2001: A Space Odyssey, but for 2 hours and 38 minutes or 30
Yeah.
minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're always gonna find something different. You're always gonna have something to talk about. You're always gonna have something. You could watch this movie 10, 15 times, and you're still
Yes.
gonna find something new. And I think that's the type of movie he was trying to make, not just a sci-fi movie. I think he
Mhm.
wanted to make a movie, and I think it came out at a bad time. It came out during mid-pandemic, and this is one of the reasons
It
why
was the
Warner Brothers and
first
him.
blockbuster, yeah, that,
Yeah.
came out during, the pandemic.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why him and Warner Brothers don't have a relationship anymore because of their
Yeah.
day and date streaming. And I think what it was is, like, I think he wanted to test something in theaters with this. How
Mhm.
many return visits can we get? How many can we do this? How many this? I think this was a very experimental film
Yeah.
from camera to the audience.
Mhm.
Not even just on, like, from literal consumption. That's kind of how I took this movie while watching it. I was like, I think I see Christopher Nolan experimenting on how movies are consumed with this movie
Yeah.
because nothing's made like this.
Mhm.
And I respect the hell out of it. This is a movie I will 100% rewatch. I had a great time with it.
I've
There wasn't
seen
a
it,
part
like,
where I was like,
7
"What the
times,
hell?"
bro, and, like, I
Yeah.
still find I think that was my 7th time seeing it, and because I saw it 3 times when it first came out in theaters. I've seen it a
Yeah.
few times on disc, and I saw it the re-release, and I still find little subtle clues. I'm like, "Holy shit, that's what that is," later in the movie that I didn't
Yeah.
see, like, the other 6 times.
Yep. And even I was watching something, it's like a 2-minute long interview or him just talking to I don't know if it's an interview or he's just talking. He's like, "It's easier just to watch the movie than it is to try to talk about it and explain it," or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see how somebody can absolutely not get anything out of this. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's not that confusing. You should
Mhm.
at least be able to get a bare bones amount of information, understand that the linearity of
Yeah.
time at the same time. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, otherwise, I thought it was really, really cool. Like the part wherever I think it's Neil, they're in like the airport or where the plane part is. And
Oh, Oslo.
yeah, and then he ends up taking off, the mask of the guy, and it's the protagonist that he's
Mhm.
fighting. I thought that was cool. I thought that
Yeah.
was really cool. But yeah, I mean, Denzel's son always kills this man. I still think like this is a great performance. Shout out Black Klansman if nobody's seen
Oh,
that. That's
great
one of
freaking
his.
movie, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's absolutely stellar in that movie, and I've been a fan of him since that. I think he's been
Mhm.
in some dibbles and dabbles here and there ever since. But he's a draw for me, and I don't know why I
Mhm.
didn't know Robert Pattinson was in this, and even if I did, I didn't know he'd be a primary secondary character, if that makes sense. Like he's not.
Yeah, I think this was, like, one of the ones, honestly. I mean, I think he had just done Lighthouse before this. I could be
Mhm.
wrong, but I think this was another film, like, so Lighthouse, Tenet, and Batman. I think these 3 movies were kind of, like, where people started seeing him like, "Oh, wow, like, you
Yeah,
can, like, do something a little bit different outside of Twilight." So and he kills it in
and
this
yeah,
movie. His character's, like, so funny and witty and,
yeah,
like
goofy.
yeah, leaves you kind of in the dark too, not knowing I mean, like, he knows a lot, but you don't know what
Yeah,
he knows.
yeah,
Um, yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. It's I get when people say they don't like this movie. I don't think it's for everyone.
yeah,
I do think it warrants, like, multiple rewatches and just because you get something out of it each time.
yeah,
But the thing that sticks out for me, man, is just that, like you said, the cinematography I think is amazing, and just I just admire Nolan because he was probably the only one on set that understood what the fuck was going on. Like,
Didn't
there's
Robert
just
Pattinson say that?
I
That
think he
he
said,
had
like, he was
no idea.
confused.
He just took
Yeah.
direction. Yeah, he just took direction.
There's a cool special feature, man, if you watch it on the disc where, like, they were talking about that fight scene at the airport, so where he's
Yeah,
fighting himself pretty much, and
yeah,
Nolan told the stunt guys, he's like, "I want you to, like, choreograph a fight." He's like, "And then, like, I want you to rewind it and watch it backwards, and I want the second guy to do everything that the backwards guy does." And the guys are like, "What the are you asking us to do?" Like, 'cause
yeah,
it is like he's fighting himself, so the choreography there is so weird. You know
yeah,
what I mean? But I don't know how he made it happen. He made it happen, and it's, like, one of my favorite sequences in the movie. That
yeah,
and the final battle, and I think Denzel's son does a great job at kind of, like we're kind of, like, learning about this world with him, right?
yeah,
'Cause even at the end battle where he's like, "I wanted to be on the first wave," and the guy's like, "There is no first wave." He's like, "It's happening all at the same time," and, like, you could still see that protagonist is even kinda confused of what the fuck's going
yeah,
on. Like, he's like, "I don't
yeah,
get it," but
yeah,
it's a fun film. It's not perfect. I think the first hour is definitely, like, uh, there's not a
It's a
lot
lot
that
of world
happens
building.
world building. There's not a lot that happens the first hour.
Yeah.
It's when you get to that, like, that viewing room with the red and
Yeah.
blue that things just kick off and you're like, "What the hell is going on?" And
The
it really
reverse car, that was
Oh,
really
yeah,
well
that
done,
was
dude.
really cool, man.
And
Yeah.
the way that
Just
the shots on the ground, I'm sure you noticed that every time the car would get right before an impact point, it would pull backwards and revert. It
yeah.
was super cool.
It's I don't know how he thinks of this crap, man. Sometimes I think Nolan's, like, on on
Acid.
drug on something, dude. Because 'cause I'm like, I really don't I've even read the screenplay, like, just to
Yeah.
see it. I'm like, I wouldn't know, like, if I was an actor, what the fuck was going on. Like, I really it's so but it is like that, like what you said, it's an experience, and I
Yeah.
think there's that one scene, it's corny as hell with the scientist where she's like, "Don't try to understand it, just feel it." And I think that that's his whole point with this movie. It's like, don't try to delve into the nitty-gritty of it. I
Yeah.
mean, you can if you want to. It's there if you want to, but if you don't want to, it's just like an experience that you have.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not supposed to have, like, this deep lore that you come at, because really how I described it is the bare bones of everything. It's really
Yeah.
the nuances, like what we were talking about with Neil reverting at the very end with the gun and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then just like the back and forth of that. That's the part that gets confusing when you try to understand that, because there's nothing else but just hypotheticals. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean,
Everything
there's
else is actually laid out for you.
the
You know what I
I
mean?
chuckle at the end too, because like, when he says, like what's that line? It always makes me chuckle. He's like, I figured out it wasn't working for you. We've both been working for me." I'm like, "What movie says that?"
Mhm,
Like,
yeah.
it's, like, so twisty and quirky. It's
Yeah.
weird. And then so you thought, Neil was Max by the end of it, was the interpretation you got?
It felt like it, because isn't the girl that this was also a confusing part, and this was just me like interpolating things and trying to put things
Yeah.
there that I don't know if was there. But the girl that he takes out at the very end, she's like the head of this whole start, because she was at the beginning and
Mhm.
she was dabbled in there. So now he's starting Tenet at that point. This
Yeah.
is the origin. The ending is the origin of
Yeah.
everything that started from the beginning. And then Neil is younger than protagonist, but you never see
Yeah.
him visibly older. And yeah, I mean, similar hair, everything like that.
So, the reason people think everything you said is true, another reason people think it's because his name is Maximilian. So, if you take the
Yeah,
last 4 words of Maximilian backwards, it's Neil.
yeah,
So, yeah, so that's why people think, but for me, it's kind of like, how do you so does he invert, like, for years? Like,
yeah,
that's the thing, it's like, are you in a shipping container for fucking years, like, inverting back to
yeah,
that point? That's the only point, like, that I'm like, is that really Neil or not? Because 'Cause I'm like, you'd have to invert for several years,
yeah, and it's
and I don't know if
possible
that works. I
because
guess it's
he said
possible, but it's like, you're
yeah,
like, what are you doing for, like, that
yeah,
long of a time?
because he says that he's known him for years and he's the one that
Mhm.
recruited him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the part where it gets goofy.
Yeah, it gets goofy, man. But this is one, like I told you, I think before you saw it, is that this is definitely, I think, if there's ever a cult film with Nolan, it's Tenet. Like, there's so many people that
Yeah,
just watch it so many times. There's graphs and like all these theories that people still have about the movie. Like, it's a fun movie to watch. Um,
yeah.
but I'm glad it sounds like you enjoy it. I thought at first you didn't enjoy it with the reaction that you gave.
No, I had a good time. I mean, it's a great world. The cinematography is amazing. And like the shots and the practicality of everything just looks
Yeah,
really good. Like the reverse bullet shots and everything, the fight sequences, they're
that's dope.
crazy good. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'd give it a solid 8, 8.5. I had a good time
Okay,
with it. Yeah,
that's good.
I had a really good time with it.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, maybe we'll delve into more Nolan then.
Yeah.
Did you like out of curiosity, did you like this one more than Inception?
mm,
I think I
no.
mean,
I
Inception
mean,
for me
for
is
different
better.
reasons. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say I'd say Inception, but for different reasons, because they're similar in the
they're
way
very
that they're kind of
different.
presented, but very
Yeah.
different in the way they're meant to be consumed. Like I didn't get the vibe from Inception that I need to watch this 10 more times to get more. You know what I
I did,
mean?
that's interesting, I felt that way. I felt
Yeah.
there's so many hints and clues with Inception too.
No, for sure, but I was able to walk away almost not completely, but understanding it to, like, a really full extent, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Tenet, it's kinda like whenever you have that video game and you go through the main storyline, and the storylines can be, like, pretty just linear, but you skipped out on all the side quests, and you didn't get all
Mhm.
those documents and
Yeah.
collectibles, but they make a lot of sense when you get those documents and
Yeah.
collectibles and side quests. That's how Tenet feels.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah,
a good analogy, and
yeah,
if you ever watch it again, pay attention to the music at the final battle whenever you're seeing the inverted troops.
yeah.
The music is actually backwards.
I noticed that. I noticed that.
Pretty cool, yeah, and it sounds
score's
pretty
great.
awesome. Yeah, the
Yeah.
score by I think Ludwig, whatever his name is.
Yeah, he's his composer for most of his movies.
Did you have
right?
subtitles on? Last
Mm-mm.
question, because oh really?
Does it
So
tell you some stuff?
well, no, well, it's just that's one of the biggest complaints with this film is that seeing it in the cinema and even at home, that the audio quality, the mix
Is
is just
awful.
it's hard to understand these characters. Like, you know, when they have the SWAT masks on, or at the end when they
Yeah.
have the inverted masks on the
Yeah.
ship, like it's like, what the fuck are you saying, dude? I cannot
Yeah, 'cause
understand.
it sounds very muffled. Like,
And then you have the high tech, like techno music playing in the
Yeah.
background. It's like I can't. I had to watch it on subtitles when I saw it at home, because in the
Yeah.
theater I was like, what the fuck were they saying when they had the mask on? I couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
But Nolan seems to defend it, man. He's like, I feel fine with the mix and I don't have an issue with it. Like, I don't know about that.
He must have like auto leveling headphones or something that he's listening to, or like the greatest sound system that just EQs it for him.
Exactly.
So
where it's,
maybe
like,
that's why.
perfect.
Yeah. He's popping in the disc or the DCP at home with a perfect EQ
Like
setting.
$100,000 system or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or he has some guy that he pays to tweak it just to,
Calibrate it perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
Yeah.
really good recommendation. I'm definitely excited to dive into more of his stuff. And it seems
Cool.
like this is part deuce of us not giving like a
Yeah.
movie a 1.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's Tokyo Gore Police was I mean, it was the first and last one so far, right? I don't think we
Yeah.
had any
What
other
was the
ones, but I
second one?
feel
The
I'm trying to
second one,
remember.
no, it was Will and I that, or no, Santa Sangre, but you liked that movie.
Yeah, like it was. I was kind of in the. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's definitely not. Like, it's not a bad movie.
It's not Tokyo Gore Police.
Yeah, it's not. Dude, that movie is still. I can't. I feel like I have another one of those on the horizon.
Yeah, because I've been giving you too many decent ones to good ones, so
Oh
I
man,
gotta level it out.
I'm not looking forward to next episode, dude.
As always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We have a lot of fun doing these. If you guys have, just because I mean, I feel like what was this, our fifth one with us?
Yeah, around there.
If you guys have kind of gotten a flavor and a vibe with what we're recommending to each other, maybe comment down below. Let us know. Maybe you got a recommendation for me. Maybe you got a recommendation for Gabe. And that'll be kind of cool to just be like, hey, neither of us recommended one. Somebody else did. So that'd be a cool thing. That'd be interesting. Fun. Community recommendations. As always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for all the love and support. Until next week.
See you guys.